Did you see how that Kentucky-Georgia game was called? Well, if you look like me, you certainly did not.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on tonight's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be recapping Kentucky basketball's 82-69 loss to the Georgia Bulldogs. Some of the worst officiating I have seen in my entire life, and I'm here to tell you that is simply just reality for the Kentucky Wildcats, unfortunately, on the road this year, and it's frankly reality for everybody in the SEC. So strap in. That is my message to everybody in Big Blue Nation. Strap in. It is going to be a very long conference slate. It's hard to win on the road. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everybody that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribe there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Kentucky basketball loses to Georgia by 13 on the road. 82-69 is the final score. And ladies and gentlemen, if you look like me, Stevie Wonder in an officiating uniform, you could have officiated this game. It was one of the worst officiating performances that I have seen in my entire life. The calls that were simultaneously missed and the calls that were simultaneously made were so egregious at halftime. I immediately ran down to the store to get myself a pair of cheap sunglasses so that I could pull this bit off, to be honest with you. Guys, this was absolutely disgusting. Georgia, coming into this game, we knew they're a physical team. They have a lot of big men that are super talented that can dominate down low, grabbing boards. They dominate in the paint in terms of efficiency, shooting the basketball. Somto Cyril is a really, really good player. Asa Newell, 5-star freshman. They've got really good guys down low. The officiating crew allowed them to play however they wished. Somto Cyril was able to do literally whatever he wanted in the paint and outside the arc when he was guarding Brandon Garrison. You cannot put both hands on a player's hips or their forearm and push them out of the stance that they're in if they're on the three-point line looking to make a pass. You cannot do that. That is a foul, and the officiating crew did not call it at all tonight. Kentucky was allowed to be manhandled, and anytime Kentucky did anything that could have been ticky-tack or light, they called it over and over and over and over again. Almost every single call in this game that could have been 50-50 went against Kentucky. Almost every single call that could have been 80-20 that could have gone against Georgia went against Kentucky. This was absolutely pathetic. And you can sit here and tell me, sure, maybe Kentucky, could they have shot better? Yes. Could they have rebounded a little bit better? Absolutely. You cannot win a game like this with the way that it was being called tonight. It is the start and end of this conversation. You say Kentucky should have shot better. If they had allowed them or not allowed them to be as physical on Kentucky, maybe they could have gotten some cleaner looks. Well, you could have finished better at the rim. If they had called more fouls on Kentucky at the rim, then maybe Kentucky would have gotten to the free throw line and they would have been able to execute more points there. This is one of the worst we got jobbed officiating performances I have seen. This takes me back to, I believe it was either 2022 or the 2021 season where we played at LSU. Severe Wheeler got clobbered in that game. Almost nothing was called. Davion Mintz got clobbered in this game. Almost nothing in that game. Almost nothing was called. This is an egregious. It's an indictment on the way that the game is being called. You cannot play basketball like this. You cannot continue to play basketball like this. This is so disappointing. And I want to say, I'll say this. Georgia is a good team. They're a good team. I said it in the preview, and I'll say it again. This is a good team that was going to put up a dogfight one way or another. Some people online didn't see it that way. The reality of the situation is it's hard to win on the road, and a lot of it has to do with the way that the game is going to be called. Yes, it absolutely sucks. Yes, Kentucky got jobbed. I firmly believe they got jobbed, which we'll get into the numbers, but holy freaking cow. How are you supposed to respond if you're Kentucky? How are you supposed to play your game if you are being physically manhandled every single trip down the floor and they're calling almost nothing? Almost nothing. And you may look at it and say, okay, well, Georgia was called for 20 fouls. It took forever to get there. The third foul in the second half was called with like a little over 11 minutes to go. You cannot play basketball like this with the way that the game was called. It is just egregious. It is just absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wear this I'm going to wear this official jersey until we find a game here that feels like it was called competently. The reality of the situation again, it's hard to win on the road. It's hard to win on the road against a team that was 12-2. You don't just stumble upon 12-2. Georgia is a good team. They've got a very good front court. Very good front court. But they were not officiated properly tonight. Frankly, if I were Georgia and I realized 5 minutes into this game, hey, they're going to let us do whatever we want, I would have called the same game. If I were Mike White, I would have said, go in there, throw elbows, hand check everybody, and throw people on the ground for rebounds whenever you're going for a rebound and make them call it differently. I would have done the exact same thing. Unfortunately, you're not going to get that benefit if you're Kentucky and you're playing on the road. That's just part of it. Something else I want to point out here real quick, that's also the case for everybody else in the SEC. Every other team in the SEC is going to suffer from this. It is going to be a dogfight for every single opponent that wants to travel on the road and try and play semi-competent basketball. It's going to be a free throw contest if the home team wants to make it one. This, again, ridiculous. Then the problem is there's nothing that you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. If you want to try and play more physical, like Kentucky did at different points, you'll get called for fouls. If you want to try and maybe let things go, you're going to give up easy buckets. It's just part of it. It's just the reality. You need to buckle up now. If you are a Kentucky fan listening to this, the reality is, and I keep saying reality, right? Buckle up, sober up. It's going to be a bumpy ride until tournament time. Mark Pope has put together a team that is capable of getting hot and making a run in the SEC and NCAA tournaments. It's going to require different officiating, and it's going to require the team to just start shooting better at some point this season. Full stop. Brian, the YouTube comments, if you're watching this live, by the way, thank you so much. If you're listening on the postcast, we are currently live on YouTube recording this. Brian says, Andrew Carr getting choke slammed to the ground with hands fully around his neck confirms these refs should be suspended. Do they have money on this game or what? I believe the refs are unionized, if I'm not mistaken, so we can't do anything about this. But yeah, you want to go back and look. Carr was going for a rebound. He got choke slammed onto the ground. They didn't call anything. They did not call anything. The response to anybody that says Kentucky should have done X, Y, or Z in this game better. It's simple. Yes, they could have done better. They could have absolutely done better in multiple aspects of the game. It is so difficult, nearly impossible to do better it's nearly impossible to do better with the way that this game was called. It is nearly impossible. There's nothing you can do about it. The flagrant on Carr didn't make sense. It was a weak call. Can't blame officiating for losses. You guys can't play well away from Rupp. Again, I want to reiterate what I said earlier. Nobody's going to play well away from home this season. Maybe outside of Auburn. I've not taken a look at that Auburn-Texas score. Nobody in this conference is going to play well on the road this season. Mark it down. Throw the freaking sticker up, for crying out loud. It is not going to happen. The games are going to be called differently, and you just have to accept it. Nobody's going to play well. Case in point, the number one team in the nation going on the road to Florida tonight and getting 30-pieced. They didn't score 50. Tennessee didn't score 50. They got manhandled, and they were allowed to do so. Florida was allowed to do so. It's part of it. It's just so egregious. It's just so ridiculous. We're going to continue to dive into this. We're going to continue to look at the numbers. we're going to continue to talk about just how frustrating this one was. If you're playing at a true road venue, it's going to be hard in the SEC. Before we continue, guys, we all need help. I need help right now. I want to tell you guys about our friends real quick over at Rocket Money. Of course, they can help you find your subscriptions that you may not realize you're paying for. Maybe you're paying for fake officials to throw out on the court and you didn't even realize it. Well, Rocket Money can help you find that. They've actually helped me out a lot recently for several things I do for work, realizing I didn't even have subscriptions to certain things that I needed to cancel. They made it so easy to track everything down. It's like a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Also monitors your spending and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place. Spending habits, the goals you want to hit this year. They have over 5 million users and have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. You can cancel your unwanted subs and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. You can go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Again, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, continuing along here on the Wednesday morning, technically edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show tonight. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Goodness gracious, have mercy. Kentucky basketball falling to 12-3. I want to point this out. Kentucky did not play bad defense tonight. They didn't play bad defense tonight. And you may say, Lance, that's really hard to believe. Well, I want to point to 3 different things here real quick. Georgia shot 42% from the floor. They shot 29% from 3. Both those numbers abysmal. They had 15 turnovers. And they just offensively, didn't play phenomenal. Kentucky didn't play horribly defensively outside of what they were doing against Somto and Newell. If you believe it or not, Kentucky's defensive efficiency actually rose after this game. They were 91st heading into this. They're 88th now. They jumped 3 spots after giving up 82 points. The game was not as bad as you want to make it out to be. Again, it comes back to officiating. That's where it starts and ends. These boys out here were looking like Stevie Wonder, looking around, going, "Oh, is that Amari Williams who just got pushed off of? That's a foul. Oh, is that a Kentucky player getting thrown to the floor on a layup? No, didn't see that." It's just absolutely ridiculous. I cannot stand it. Cannot stand the way that this was called. And it's going to be the reality. That is just part of it. Mississippi State this weekend is not going to be any different. It's just not. And you have to be able to outshoot it. You have to be able to outshoot it. And here's the thing, and I see a lot of you in the comments right now saying this as well. Like, no, on this show, I try and point out, hey, look, the officiating's bad, but Kentucky should have done these things better to win the game. Like, they lost the game, not the officials. Tonight feels like a little bit of a different story. Ito, the F&D, says, Lance officiating aside, if Robinson can't do any better, he needs to come off the bench. This was something that I was talking about on Twitter with some of you guys, just asking the question. Some of you were like, what do you do with the way that Jackson Robinson has just been performing lately? Another really bad performance tonight. 5 points, 1 of 5 from the floor. He had 4 fouls. He had 2 rebounds, an assist, and a steal in 27 minutes of play. Straight up, full stop. I thought about it. I said on Twitter, I was like, what does this do to his confidence if you bench him? But also, he came off the bench at BYU a season ago. Do you put him there and just hope that brings him back to whatever average level that he was a season ago? I mean, honestly, at this point, I think you may have to bench him in favor of Brea, who was tonight 2 of 10, but a lot of that I think was just shot chucking at the end, just trying to get Kentucky back into it. You wouldn't have seen that performance otherwise. Yeah, Jackson needed to have a good game tonight, and he just simply did not play well, and it was just really disappointing. I appreciate everybody in the comments appreciating the officiating shirt. Yeah, I feel like we got jobbed. This tonight, I was as good as the guys on the court, and I don't ever say that, and we probably won't say it again this year. It's like, oh, this was so bad that it lost us the game. Look, Mississippi State's going to suck. It's going to absolutely suck. Going on the road to Vanderbilt, it's going to stink as well. Going on the road to Tennessee is going to be abysmal. The officiating's probably not going to go our way. It's probably going to be in favor of the home team pretty substantially, but it's not going to be nearly as bad as it was tonight. There's no way it can be. Brea was decent on defense tonight. I thought he was pretty okay. Jax got blown by like twice on the baseline. Brea was able to recover and get a block. It was just I don't know what Kentucky's doing with their personnel with a couple of these guys, and I know a lot of it's confidence based. I know a lot of it's just the rotations really balanced, but if guys are consistently underperforming like this, you have to be able to do something different. And you see, Alex says, we just got to start playing more physical too, and everyone seems to get in their own heads. I agree. It does feel like Kentucky has a little bit of a confidence issue. It feels like at times Kentucky does kind of get into their own head and they rush things. And this is a team that consistently just doesn't make a ton of mistakes. Like, they just really don't make a ton of bad decisions. But whenever they do, like against Ohio State tonight, things do kind of get out of hand. And again, part of that has to do with the fact that they were getting manhandled. Let's talk about free throws. I know a lot of you have been asking about it. Let's go ahead and get to it. By the way, if you've not liked the video already, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. If you've not subscribed, listen, not every episode is going to be like this where we're just complaining about the officiating. That's not the reality. This is a good team. This is a team that could do a lot of special things. We're the only team in the country that has 3 top 10 wins. We're top 15 in the net right now. This is a good squad. We're going to continue to try and be positive here as we continue along in the week. But tonight, man, free throws. Did you know? Hey, you know what? I use Mark It Down as the hot take episode we do or a hot take segment we do at the beginning of the week. Hey, mark this one down in your little pad, as my dad likes to say. If you are at one point looking up and the free throw discrepancy is 31-9 in favor of the opponent, you are probably not going to win the game ever. It's never going to happen. Tonight, Kentucky outscored at the free throw line. Georgia, 38 trips. Kentucky, 19 trips at the charity stripe. Kentucky shooting 15 of 19. Georgia, 29 of 38. 29 of 38. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different Bulldogs had at least 2 free throws taken. 5 of them had at least 3. What can you even say? This is... It's horrible. It was horrible. And it's jaw-dropping. Says there's the game right there. That's it. Your opponent was allowed to take almost 40 free throws, and until the game got out of hand in the second half, you were only allowed to take 16 of your 19 free throws came in the second half. You didn't have a free throw attempt until like the final few minutes of the first. Crowd chanting overrated was so trashy, too. If the security didn't hold them back, they were going to storm the court. You can't have it both ways. You either storm the court and celebrate that you beat a top 10 team that's already had a lot of really good wins, or we're overrated and we suck. It's one of the two. You can't have it both ways. You can't celebrate beating a team that you don't think is good. Only one team was allowed to be physical. Carissa would help right now. Butler wore out at the end of the game. I think that, and this is not to say Travis Perry is bad. I just don't think he's ready. It would have helped, I think, tremendously to have had Kerr Carissa on the floor instead of Travis Perry whenever you needed to give Butler a breath. I will say, and some of you have already pointed this out, Lamont Butler played so good tonight. Butler played amazing. If you want to talk about positives, shout out to Lamont Butler, man. He is so good. He's so good. Such a good lead guard. 20 points, 8 of 14 from the floor. Was 1 of 3 from beyond the arc, but would have been like one. He would have been 1 of 1 had it not been for, again, chucking shots at the end of the game to try and make this close. Along with his 20 points on a very efficient shooting, he had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 4 steals in 34 minutes of play. Braden points this out in the comments. If you're going to make a run in the NCAA tournament, Butler's going to have to be a major contributor. He's continuing to be that for you, but he's going to have to stay that way. We love the level of play. You got to see it continue. Brandon Garrison played pretty decently tonight as well at different stretches. There were some moments where it was soft play. There were some moments where it was aggressive and it was decent. 4 turnovers tonight is putrid. There's no other way to put it, but 13 points, made the only 3 he took, just sort of died on the back rim in the first half and went in. 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals, but he also had those 4 turnovers and a couple of fouls as well. Christopher says, Trent Noah, sit Jackson Robinson. It can only be a positive at this point. Listen, reality of the situation, if you have 3 different wings that are known as 3-point specialists who are average to subpar defensively, if you are starting one that cannot contribute either way, you should consider benching him for the other player who is shooting he might still be shooting over 50%. Well, after tonight, yeah, he's shooting 49.5% from 3. You might consider benching him for the kid that's shooting almost 50%. If you do not want to play Brea extensive minutes, you should strongly consider going to your 6'6" freshman who's he's not lacking for weight. That's for certain. And he's also got a really solid shot. Trent Noah's got to get an opportunity, man. If Travis Perry is getting into the game for 6 minutes, Noah should have gotten into the game for 6 or 7 minutes tonight with the way that Jax was playing. I am so disappointed with how Jackson has started this season, and I want him to do better. I think he can do better. I just don't know where it's going wrong for him. I don't know if it's confidence. I don't know if he's just not being set up right. But either way, it's disappointing, to say the very least. Owe couldn't get a shot to fall either. Played tough, but it looked like he gave up at the end, kind of, yeah. I mean, 3 of 13 from the floor, 7 rebounds. I mean, he's just another player that just missed some big buckets. Williams couldn't get a groove because of foul trouble. Yeah, he got a couple fouls early, and then that was that. Let me tell you something. They were not going to let Amari Williams get out of this game without getting close to fouling out. They were not going to let him play well. The officiating crew made that known early. Somto and Newell were going to have whatever they wanted. Whatever they wanted. And you can look at the stats over there. Somto Cyril, 6 points, 8 rebounds. Cyril did foul out. Frankly, he should have fouled out with about 15 minutes left in the second half. Then you've got Newell, 17 points, 5 of 9, 2 huge threes at different points in this one, 7 rebounds, plus 13. Just big time stuff from their bigs, man. Lance, it's like KSR said, the season is just sections of 2 games apiece. Our first section, we went 1-1. We got to be ready for the meat grinder. And gentlemen, a meat grinder it shall be. A meat grinder it shall absolutely be. Unfortunately, here for you, if you go 9-9, there's going to be a large portion of this fan base that is upset. There's going to be a large portion of this fan base that is expecting better. And all I'm here to tell you is if you go 9-9, we've talked about it with Torvik. If you go 8-10, according to Bart Torvik, one of the biggest college basketball analytics sites right now, if you go and plug it in 8-10, and you don't win a game in the SEC tournament, you're going to be a 5 seed. If you win the tournament, you will be a 4 or a 3 seed with an 8-10 record in SEC play. It's because of the amount of quad 1 opportunities that you have. If we go 9-9, I'm pulling it up here for you guys right now. I'm going to pull up Teamcast on barttorvik.com, and we're going to walk through this here real quick. Live on air, this is going to be posted later on podcast. This is obviously going up immediately. So Bart Torvik, this analytics site, has this T-rank forecast where you can go and project win-loss throughout the course of the rest of the season. Right now, Kentucky would be a 3 seed according to Bart Torvik. They'd be just barely on the 3 seed line at 12-3. They've already got the loss to Georgia in here. So let's walk this out. 1-1 in the SEC. We're projected to lose on the road right now to Mississippi State. We're projected to win against Texas A&M, so we'll plug that in. Kentucky barely projected to beat Alabama, so we'll plug that in. Also projected to beat Vanderbilt on the road. They are projected to lose to Tennessee by a pretty wide margin. Kentucky is projected to dominate Arkansas by 10 points. Holy cow. It's projected to lose on the road just barely to Ole Miss. Let's see. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 different losses here for Kentucky. A fifth would be to Tennessee at home. A sixth would be to Alabama. A seventh would be to Auburn. And let's just throw in, we'll throw in LSU for good measure. We'll call that a loss as well. Everything else here is a win. So you get a win over Texas. You get a win over Vanderbilt. You get a win over Missouri. You get a win over South Carolina. And there we go. We're not even going to simulate the conference tournament just yet. But let's plug this in. Appreciate everybody in the live chat throwing down 20 more free throw attempts for Georgia is abysmal. All three of our bigs were in serious foul trouble on the road. That's going to be a loss every single time unless we have a crazy three-point shooting night. You are absolutely right. So if you plug in Kentucky goes 21-10, 9-9 in the SEC, they would still be a 3 seed. They'd still be a 3 seed. Let's add a conference tournament simulation where you beat Florida and then you lose to Auburn. Just one more win. You just win a game. It doesn't matter if it's Florida or not. You beat a quad one opponent at a neutral site almost definitely if you're playing in the SEC tournament at 9-9. Almost certainly letting this website load here. So you win against Florida, you lose to Auburn, you go up a little bit. You are firmly on the 3 seed line at 22-11, 9-9 in SEC play. You got to find one to steal on the road, and you got to win out at home. That's kind of what it boils down to. And if you can win against Tennessee at home, if you can win against Bama at home, if you can win against Auburn at home, if you can win 2 out of those 3, big. Huge for Kentucky. Georgia's not very good. Immediately followed up with a comment that says Georgia is decent, plus I think Mike White is a legit coach. I mean, he's decent. He's a good coach. He's a good coach. He knows what he's doing, obviously. Georgia, by the way, climbed 13 spots tonight on KenPom after beating Kentucky. The way that they did, still projected to go 19-12, 7-11, which is kind of funny. But he's put together a roster that is fit to compete in the SEC because of how physical they are. Lack of energy, yeah, that was another huge thing tonight. Do I have any updates on Crease's status? I'm not an insider with a lot of these guys. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of people that do know more than me. How many spots did the refs climb? I think they're actually ranked first on KenPom. Let me go check real quick. They were like top 20. Yep, all the way up to first. Way past Auburn, actually. With their conference is the Screw You Conference. I see. Yeah. What a game. What a game for Georgia and the officiating crew. Sitting like this, ladies and gentlemen, like they could not see a single thing. Very disappointed. Jesse asks, who will win the SEC tournament? Jesse, that is a phenomenal freaking question. I don't know if we could accurately predict that. I don't know if anybody can. This is going to be a dog fight of a conference. Bloodbath. We've said it a couple of times already this year, and I'll say it again. It's going to be rough. This is the best we have seen this conference. It's as good as it's been in my lifetime. It might be as good as it's ever been from top to bottom. Again, 10-8, 9-9 for the SEC or for Kentucky. Massive. Just to give you an idea, by the way, as we wrap up here real quick, this is like in comparison to Kentucky, like consistently going on the road and playing Houston, Kansas, UConn, teams like West Virginia, teams like the Zags again, teams like Michigan State, Oregon, Illinois, just consistently playing those night in and night out. We have to understand just how impressive this is. If you are able to steal a couple on the road, it's gonna be big. Mark says, what happened to Tennessee? I know they got dog walked, but any specifics? They just couldn't hit. They couldn't hit outside shots, and they got mugged on the boards. Absolutely mugged on the boards. And frankly, they just, I think the officiating kind of went away from them there when it comes to rebounding. And, Florida got out and ran. Chaz Lanier played terribly, based on what I saw. It's just up for grabs. Any team can win it. Yep. It was a home game for Florida and a bounce-back game for after that game at Kentucky. Tennessee flat. They have an injured player. All true. It just sucks that your next game is against Mississippi State. If you had asked me, hey, Auburn aside, who's the team you wouldn't want to play immediately after playing Georgia in the SEC? And I would have said either Texas A&M or Mississippi State. Guess who our next two opponents are? You have to respond if you're Kentucky. You have to find a way. How are they going to do it? We'll continue to break it down here on Locked On Kentucky. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and God bless.